Hello again. This is Will Luden, your host with Revolution 2.0, a revolution of the heart. Bringing you today's episode, Disney, Florida, Gays, and You. And together we are at episode 396, and together we are creeping up on episode 400. When I was growing up, Disney nurtured, delighted, and educated the young, and gays were fags. Today, neither one is true. One change is good, the other is bad. Some quick recent history on this subject of Disney, Florida, Gays, and You. Number one, the so-called Don't Say Gay bill never mentioned gays and was designed to protect K through 3 children from sexual concepts that they couldn't possibly process. And remember, most of the time, if you're in third grade, you're 9 or younger, you're in the single digits. 2, after initially staying out of the controversy, Disney CEO Bob Chapek was pressured by his employees into harshly criticizing the bill. 3, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed a bill reversing a 55-year-old favorable agreement between Disney and the state of Florida. Here's some quick reaction to that history. The bill was entirely reasonable. Read it. The bill was entirely reasonable. 2, the Disney CEO should have stayed out of this entirely. 3, is the Florida reaction a denial of Disney's free speech? I believe it is. Disney had the right to say what they said, but they weren't right in saying it. That's an important distinction. There are many things we have the right to say and do that aren't right for us to either say or do. So prior to the bill, the Disney CEO, Bob Chapek, said, "I called Governor DeSantis this morning to express our disappointment and concern that if this legislation becomes law, it could be used to unfairly target gay, lesbian, non-binary, and transgender kids and families." Remember, the bill restricted what you could say in the classroom to kids of a sexual nature, 9 and under. And the CEO of Disney is saying that this bill could be used to unfairly target gay, lesbian, non-binary, and transgender kids and their families. He went on after the bill was signed. He said, "I want to be crystal clear. I and the entire leadership team unequivocally stand in support of LGBTQ plus employees, their families, and their communities, and we are committed to creating a more inclusive country and world. We all share the same goal of a more tolerant, respectful world." Well, what about simple respect for the needs of children 9 and under, and respect for the parents who are the parents, not the government, not the kids? And Mr. Chapek, the CEO of Disney, is saying all of this while expanding Disney into autocratic China, well known for its intolerance to, for example, religion, by its historical persecution of Christians and its current persecution of Muslim Uyghurs. And China is aggressively intolerant of the LGBTQ community, the very community that Mr. Chapek and Disney are pretending to defend in their opposition to the K through 3 parental rights bill. The bill that insists that children be taught age-appropriate materials and concepts. Hey, we don't teach calculus to 9-year-olds. We don't talk about the trial and death of Socrates, and we don't talk about the horrors of war. So what makes anyone think they can handle concepts like being the wrong gender, gender fluidity, men having babies, or parts of people's privates being surgically altered? He's attacking Florida while continuing to do business and expanding in Florida. Now, mind you, I have some very fond memories of Disney, and I'm going to enjoy my coffee while I'm sharing some of these memories with you. It was from Disney I learned that elephants can dance in Fantasia, the 1940 animated movie. Um, and if you're enjoying this on YouTube, you'll see a still from that movie. On the Sunday night TV series The Wonderful World of Disney, former Nazi Party member and SS officer Werner von Braun taught me about three-stage rockets. And I still remember way back then what I learned about three-stage rockets. Von Braun and his colleagues went out of their way to surrender to the Allies at the end of World War II and to make sure they weren't being captured by the revenge-minded Russians. He eventually headed the U.S. space program. Some said that we got to the moon before the Russians because our captured Germans were smarter than theirs. And here's a picture of Werner von Braun, Dr. von Braun, pointing to a rocket. In the 1953 movie, The Living Desert, I learned that seemingly endless stretches of sand could be teeming with life. It was in the 70s I put that to a test driving through the Arizona desert. I was seeing sand as far as I could see with the occasional cactus and some beautiful rock formations. And I said, well, I wonder if Disney was right. And I pulled over, walked several yards into the desert and sat down, remembering the movie said you have to sit there for a while before you can see it. And sure enough, the desert was alive. It was teeming with life. And I'm grateful to Disney for that learning. And I've been to many trips to Disneyland in California and Disney World in Florida. I remember one trip with my eldest son, who was 4 at the time. We thought we were going to go on some slightly more adventurous rides, but when we hit Pirates of the Caribbean, we were done with that. We spent the entire day going ride by ride by ride, ride after ride after ride on It's a Small World After All. And it was a delight. 4 years later, we spent 3 days in Southern California, Disneyland, Knott's Berry Farm, and Universal Studios. And quite the opposite of all of the small world trips. Any ride where it wasn't possible to barf was out. So we went 3 days of barf possible rides, and that was a delight as well. And on my own, some years later, I was on business in Tampa, extended my stay, and spent multiple days by myself, just absorbing as an adult Disney World, and what a delight. Over time, life taught me how deeply wrong I was in my original views, my pejorative views of gays. I had to outgrow much of what I was taught, much of what I was indoctrinated to think. I'm embarrassed to say that my thinking needed to change, and I'm pleased to tell you that it has. Today, I do not want Disney supporting the premature introduction of advanced progressive ideas about sexuality in impressionable, non-discerning young grade schoolers. It is way too early to expose youngsters to many concepts, but to some, it is never too early to indoctrinate. I was indoctrinated early. Disney is supporting early but different indoctrination. No different, no better. It was the long swim back for me. Why would we want to risk teaching, indoctrinating our kids with concepts that they're going to have to also swim back from? So what's the resolution? How do we go forward in the 14 months before this bill takes effect? Number one, read the bill. You'll initially be surprised if there's any controversy at all if you read it. And secondly, you're going to be angry at the people who are concocting a controversy out of thin air for their personal and political benefit. 2, get involved with your local schools. Kids are indeed the future of our nation and the world. Get involved. 3, Disney and DeSantis can work this out. It shouldn't be that hard. It should not be that hard. They can work it out. They've got a while to do it. And I think that was part of the intent of the Florida legislature and Governor DeSantis when they gave 14 months, allowed 14 months before the bill takes effect. And lastly, allow freedom of speech to corporations as well as individuals. Remember, Disney had the right to say what they said. They just were not right to say it. In the 1990s, I remember very clearly, in the early days of Apple's development and expansion, CEO Steve Jobs had a program called Kids Can't Wait. He was putting free Apple computers into as many schools as he could get them. And the title Kids Can't Wait implies that kids need access, kids need access sooner rather than later to the use of and learning about computers. And he was right. But Steve Jobs also knew that if he could get Apple computers into the hands of kids at a very early age, they would have a bias toward wanting to use Apples as adults. He knew, as many people know today, you need to get the kids early if you want to influence them. And let's influence them in the right way. We all have the personal responsibility to know what we're talking about before we say anything. And speaking of personal responsibility, that's one of two main tenets at Revolution 2.0. Main tenet number one is personal responsibility. Take it, teach it. And number two is be your brother's keeper. The answer to the old question, the age-old question, am I my brother's keeper, is a ringing, unequivocal yes. There can be no other answer. So where do you stand? What are you going to do? Where do you stand on the issues of the day? These issues running through your mind, the issues you see in the media. And what are you going to do? Remember, it doesn't matter where you stand if you don't do anything. And you can start by taking positive, effective action today by subscribing and encouraging others to subscribe with you. Like, give a good review. If you're on YouTube, hit the notification bell so you'll know when we come out with the next episode, which is going to be 397. And whatever you do, whatever I do, whatever we do it in love. Without love, anything we do is empty. This is Will Luden. Talk to you next time.
You've been listening to Revolution 2.0. If you've enjoyed this stimulating, passionate, and relentless reasoning, we encourage you to get out there and do something. Follow Will Luden and learn more at revolution2-0.org.